spin it again.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena.
You know what, I've heard people call, and I kind of like it, the era that we're in, the post-truth kind of era.
And lately there's been a lot of coverage in the real news about the growing and booming business of creating fake news.
Well, I don't know, maybe he was watching CNN fake news. What do you think?
You are fake news.
Sir.
Go ahead.
Let us return to the fight. This battle is far from over.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another morning edition of Real News. My name is Mr. Henry. David Shine Thompson sitting over there to my left. Could possibly be y'all's right on the screen. We'll see how it goes. Got a bunch of folks in the Facebook right now. Do not forget to check us out on YouTube, Twitch, all the other platforms we have. You'll see them at the top of the screen up there on Facebook. Real News Radio is the language you put into all those. The easiest thing, though, I think, is just realnewsradio.live. Realnewsradio.live. You can see all of our links there, all of our affiliate links. We even have some nice little merch that if you want to pick it up, if you want to drink out of a cup, prepare like Mr. Henry does every single morning. Shine Buddy, how you doing, man? They are buying the merch. Yeah. Real News. Hey, morning, sir. Morning, sir. Doing well, doing well. Well, I was trying to get everything a little bit ready so, just so people can see. We got a little tumbler over there. We got a little 3/4 length sleeve t-shirt there people can buy into. You'll see ourselves. The live stream is going on right there. It's a weird thing I'm doing, but realnewsradio.live. Easiest way to check it out, right? Hey, by the way, Sean, they're saying to Facebook they can't hear you. I'm not sure if that's still going on or not.
True.
But,
there you go. Now you can hear me. My bad.
Oh,
At
no
least
worries,
I got
no
you
worries.
to talk about the Tumblr for a minute.
That's true.
But I do want to emphasize, we're not a commercial operation. We had to do some initial purchases to see all the cool things you see on the screen here and make sure that it can run on all these different platforms. So it just goes to kind of like pay me back for initial investment on some of this stuff and for Mr. Henry too. So it's not for profit. It's just to support. We put everything into the show. So y'all can have a good time. We can have a good time. And we wanted to give y'all a chance to wear the Real News logo somewhere. Have it in your house somewhere.
Yeah.
Have a good time with it. And we only get a tiny little piece of that. Because we're not printing mugs or anything like that. But I hope you're having a great day, Mr. Henry. It's a great Tuesday. Seems like things are opening back up. But everybody's a little negative about it. Not
it
everybody.
is, man.
Some people are negative about it.
Well, I actually wanted to spin this small little portion at the beginning of the show here, man. This hit me like literally right before we went on air. I don't know, man. Maybe it's a spiritual thing. Maybe it's not. Who knows what it is? Whatever. I'm going to speak on it, right? With the whole greatest audience in the nation appreciation segment here. For some reason, man, I just got the inclination, I suppose, to reach out to the audience one more time and just express why we're doing what we're doing. All right. We were talking about sharing this with some of our other pages that we're part of and bringing in community. And Sean even said something right before we went on air here about like, hey, man, the whole part of this is to build a community, make sure we even get just those people in to strengthen each other and grow each other. And I feel like I say that sometimes and it just hits on deaf ears. And I feel like it's hitting even on my own deaf ears sometimes because, I don't know, like Sean just said, there's a lot of frustration going around. There's a lot of sense of, even as we're opening back up the economy right now, that I keep hearing stories about, well, the numbers are going to increase to 70,000, to 80,000, to 100,000 possibly. Now Trump administration saying 125,000 possibly. And I mean, I guess what I'm really asking here is for what we started this with initially, not real news necessarily, but part real news necessarily. What we started this whole thing with, especially right now during this time period, was to get through this stuff together, to grow together. So when we bring up stories, you know, the main reason why we do some of this stuff is to get y'all's, not just get y'all's opinions, but to hold us accountable, to make sure that I'm on the right track, to make sure that I know what I'm talking about, to make sure that our analysis is even proper. It's not even about even necessarily listening to our analysis as much as it is just reading through those comments and growing and building and doing this with each other. And I'm just saying, like, I don't know, Sean, maybe I'm off. I'm just starting to feel, I prepped so many stories last night. Maybe I should just jump into one of them right now. I prepped so many stories last night, buddy, that are just taking me off on a weird little tangent of like, dude, it's just getting weird. It's getting real weird everywhere, right? And by before, I mean like a month or two ago, it was just feeling like it was about to get weird, that people were sort of signaling that it was going to get weird, that somewhere off in that near distant future, but hopefully never.
It was going to get weird. Yeah. They were selling us on how it was going to get weird.
And that's what I'm saying is now some of this stuff is starting to actually become a little bit strange with the enforcement mechanisms, with the way that some of these things are shutting down. And I don't know, y'all. I mean, I guess what I'm really just saying here is the community aspect. I want to stress that just one more time. I want to stress the community aspect of what we're building here, what we're doing, how much we rely upon y'all, and how much I want to take y'all's. Really, I want to get from y'all what you think is going on to hold us accountable, make sure that I'm not too far off here, man. Let me, as I'm pulling this clip up here, man, let me just play a little bit of what I'm talking about as to what they keep using this term new normal, Shine, and I'm kind of jumping right past this whole greatest audience in the nation appreciation type thing here, but I'm hoping this whole
you told them we're doing it for them. That's
yeah.
What it is. I mean, we talked about, we really did have a conversation this morning where it's like, we really care about all of y'all in the chat room, and we really appreciate you all so much and enjoy doing this show, but I don't think you can breeze past that because what is it? It's 8 after 10, Mr. Henry. We can get into the news. All right.
Well, by the way, there's a clip playing in this thing that I'm about to pull back up. Or I'll pull it up in a second if this clip is this ad is done. But I really do think, man, that it's this thing of I just want to make sure that I'm not too far off. You get what I'm saying, buddy? I just want to make sure that I'm not losing my mind. I want to make sure that I'm not seeing something.
I think you're doing a great job, and I think that lots of people are seeing lots of things, and people tune into real news to see what you see. So I think it's totally cool. I mean, there are a lot of weird things going on. Right? It gets weirder every day. At the same time, though, it feels a little bit more normal every day.
I know,
it's a
and that's
weird
what I'm saying,
competing
man.
thing because it feels like, don't you have this feeling like, oh, well, things are going to get back to normal soon? Like the sun's going to rise tomorrow. You know, everybody's kind of got that feeling right now because a lot of people are going back to work soon. So people are trying to open up their businesses. But there's this like thing tickling in the back of your mind, like, I hope this is gonna work.
I know, man, and it's just like the whole sort of inherently contradictory statement, if that's even what other than the new normal. This statement, a new normal, I just don't like it. It's an oxymoron, man. It really is. If something is a new normal, it would just be normal, wouldn't it? How do you have a new normal? I suppose that's what I'm asking for. Is just help me with some clarity, real news on it. Help me with this aspect of this understanding of I'm trying to figure out where to draw that line between civil liberties and do this thing properly. Civil liberties, maintaining an individual's right to do what he chooses, and this other line here, this clip that I'm about to display right now, which is basically coming from this headline that Shine shared yesterday. This is Apple and Google showing what their new contact tracing system will look like. This is in Istanbul. All right, so we're talking over here in Turkey, obviously, but just watch this clip for a minute. It's about a 2 to 3 minute clip. And I don't know, man, just think about what Apple and Google could do to some of this.
The contact tracing teams in Istanbul, we just met up with them. They are out there every single day trying to put together the clues, connect the dots as to how the virus is spreading.
Hey, Grant, it's really not coming through over here. It's kind of garbly. Stop it.
You said it's kind of garbly?
Yeah, I cut off your audio, actually, because it's really bad.
I
think generally, man, we can really only play things like YouTube. Most of these websites, it's really unfortunate that the internet's been around for 25 years, and these websites use video hosting websites to host their videos that do not play. It happens all. Well, you see it when you use it on your regular computer, but it's worse on Zoom. But
Well,
I'm sorry about that.
No worries, man. From the little clips that you were seeing there, it was them driving around, and they go from house to house. I mean, I watched this last night. I just explained what happening. They go from house to house, and it's from hopefully. I'm saying hopefully here, buddy. I'm really like fingers crossed. Hopefully here, they say in the video anyways that they're going from house to house, testing individuals who voluntarily asked to come to be tested at their front doors. Cool, right? I'm like at that point, I'm totally fine with some voluntary testing going on. They do a mouth swab, they do a nose swab, they try and get something, and what ends up happening is this individual who comes to the door is a mother. She thinks she might have been exposed by her son, and they take this information to go back to their labs and then upload it to some sort of cloud computing system or something. And the article basically goes on to say that Apple and Google obviously are developing software that's going to piggyback on public health apps rather than developing their own. So they basically algorithms that Apple and Google have already developed and just plug it directly into the existing health system. And on its face, I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. It's just some of the weird stuff that's starting to get to me, Sean. And this is where I'm asking for the audience help. I can't figure out if I'm just getting too inundated with this stuff or I'm starting to see a little bit of something. I don't know. But the story we did last Friday, buddy, of Google sort of just randomly asked me while I'm playing a Candy Crush game, like, have you started to notice anybody with symptoms in your area? If so, hit yes and start to, I don't know, like, where did that line then draw in Turkey if someone is going house to house and testing people? And what ends up happening in this Turkey clip is they say you might have been exposed by your son because he was exposed to someone that did test positive. So then they say if you end up testing positive, we're going to have to quarantine your son for 14 days. And in Turkey, if you don't quarantine for 14 days, you're looking at like massive jail sentences. Well, massive, I guess, is the operative term there, or what it could be 90 days to 120 days they're talking about for jail sentences, or a very, very heavy fine. And we're starting to see some of the similar types of, I don't know, man, stuff go on in America. And I'm just like, I don't know, dude. I don't know. I mean, I'm rambling on this part too much here, but I'm really just trying to be vulnerable with the audience. Like, am I missing? What am I missing here, man?
You're not missing anything. You're not missing anything. I mean, I think I've said on the show multiple times since this whole thing began. I thought most of my young adult life that as soon as there was any kind of real emergency or crisis where we had these kind of blanket emergency declarations, I thought the Constitution would be thrown out the window. And generally, our system is held up. I know that there's a lot of complaints, and I know that there's some people who think we should have done things differently. But generally speaking, especially compared to the rest of the world, we retain most of our rights, and we're on our way back to, full rights. We're on our way right now. There's a train headed towards let Americans do whatever the heck they want to do. That is the vibe here. But other countries are not so lucky. And there's been a lot of American companies for 20 years working on ways to, what would you call it? Curate the culture, manage the citizenry. And if the Americans are not down for that product, it will be exported. And we've already seen this. It didn't take a crisis for this to happen. We already saw this with Dragonfly, with Project Dragonfly with Google, developing censorship technology for the Communist Party of China. So, like, we have Americans in this country who export tyrannical systems to tyrannical countries. And obviously, from what we've seen over the past few years with Turkey is one of these countries. Turkey is an authoritarian country. I don't even know why we're still letting them be a part of NATO. They're not. Everything they did with Syria over the past few years, what they've done to their own people, what they did to the Kurds, what they're still doing to the Kurds, what they have said their plans are for the next 100 years. They want to reestablish the Ottoman Empire, control the world. They kind of want a softer caliphate. But anyway, the idea, Grant, though, that there are Americans who will export tyranny to other countries or try to integrate it into our own system has been around for a while. It's been a thing. Through our tech companies, our security companies, some of these private army companies. It's a thing, but what I'm excited about is during this whole deal, I've been encouraged that Americans don't take their freedoms for granted in places that I didn't think that they would, where they would have been more likely to take it for granted. Like in California, you had 3,000 people out on the beach, surfers and music people and art people, not normal people demanding rights and freedoms. So I don't know. I've been encouraged by the whole thing about the American public, but we do have to watch out for some of these authoritarian businesses.
I know, man. And part of the question that I'm trying to start to ask myself, and at this point, I just feel like I'm having a conversation with my close buddies, which is exactly what we want this whole program to be, right? I'm honestly starting to question and wondering, like, man, if I poured so much into the civil liberty side that I'm now starting to neglect or discount those that are genuinely fearful of this thing. Those that we genuinely need to watch after, the susceptible ones, the least of these type things, the ones that maybe have not had it before. I mean, I know Richard Briggs, but actually Josh Perkey put out something on your Knoxville, the AFP Knoxville page just yesterday, man, talking about something like this, of this 3 categories of individuals, right? The 3 categories of those that have already tested positive, those that have antibodies already, and those that are susceptible, or something to that. And maybe that's not the 3 categories, but the idea being is that because of testing, or either by way of testing, we will essentially categorize people into one of 3 camps. And I think those are 3 camps. Sean, you can pull up that article here in a second. But I'm starting to wonder, man, like, I don't know, because I haven't had it, or because I haven't had a personal contact with it yet, because I can't necessarily empathize with the physical side of this virus yet. Maybe I'm missing something here. Right? Maybe I'm pouring too much inside of the civil liberties. And I'm starting to think, when I read this this paragraph that I'm highlighting for everyone right now, as you can read it here, by embedding disease monitoring capabilities into virtually every smartphone on the planet, the 2 tech giants, obviously Apple and Google, the 2 tech giants hope to create a globe-spanning coronavirus warning system that could also be the tipping point in their long-time effort to gain a bigger foothold in the healthcare industry. Dude, just like everything about that sentence for me just reeks of just like, bleh. Just like this guttural sort of reaction of this visceral sort of, I bristle at everything that I just read there. Right? I'll continue, but contact tracing initiatives, in various countries, particularly those enabled by technology, have raised widespread privacy concerns that Google and Apple are trying to get ahead of. Are you? Are you trying to get ahead of it, dude? This is the question that I'm asking, China. Have I gone too far down the civil liberties road, and have I not focused enough on, like, the aspect of, yes, we need to open safely, we need to open carefully? Because it seems like, dude, the further we go down, the more and more people are getting drastically driven into one of these 2 divergent camps, right? Like exponentially driving further and further away from each other, where you're only solely concerned about the health and safety of people, or you're only solely concerned about civil liberties. I don't know why there can't be some nuanced middle ground. Maybe that's nothing different. Maybe that's nothing different at all. And maybe that's what I need to focus on. I mean, we're just not ready for pure nuanced detail at this point yet, right? We certainly weren't before this coronavirus thing. So I don't know why I think it's being different right now, but
you're right. I mean, we've been polarized. We've been lacking nuance as a culture generally. And I do believe it's some of the people who took things kind of out of context and tried to use this problem to gain more authority or more power. They're the reason it's polarized right now. America was in kind of a hold hands, kumbaya kind of place a month ago for just a moment, for like a slight moment, for like a week and a half. And then people said things that were below the belt, and they just kept doing it. And now we're polarized. And here we are, and we're not going back, is my opinion. I hope people in leadership are able to see nuance, but I doubt the culture will. And part of that is for, crowd dynamics, Mr. Henry. I mean, a lot of people have to take a position and flush it out to its logical extremes before people can nuance, especially in a new, novel type situation, right? So kind of people had to, if you think of like crowd dynamics, and I think about this stuff all the time, because I'm always thinking about narratives, right? And these nationwide narratives that we have. Sometimes in novel discussions, you need people to kind of get polarized for a second so arguments can be completely fleshed out, so you can have the minority of people standing in the middle who see the nuance because all the arguments are being fleshed out. And those people, hopefully in that case, rise to the top. And I do believe that the choice you're describing of rights or safety is a false choice, but when it comes to safety, we've had too many people in this country in leadership or in authority, positions of authority, either take advantage or abuse that authority and do things that most people see on their face as ugly. And I'll even include this in our metro area here in Knoxville. We have I can't corroborate this, but we have a deal in the chat here from Kel saying, my friends got kicked out of a playground in Clinton yesterday. A group of 13 people, 6 policemen showed up. Kids playing at the freaking playground. And I understand that there is a nuanced maybe reason for that situation. But here's the deal. Most humans are going to take that on its face and say, I don't like that. It's ugly. And part of that is because if there is danger, there hasn't been enough danger info spread. Really, that's believable to everybody. Otherwise, people, even I, would not look at that text message or whatever that is and feel a negative emotion about it. I'd be like, well, that's bad, but it's necessary. I don't have that in my gut. That's not my gut reaction to this. And I don't know how to explain that, Mr. Henry, but that's a good microcosm for where I think most Americans are at, where they see something like 6 kids getting kicked off a playground, and they're like, I just don't understand that. It doesn't feel right. I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to be intellectual about it. It doesn't feel right. And it would feel right if people felt the appropriate danger, but they don't. And for whatever reason, that is the case in America. And I don't know if that's the right thing or the wrong thing, but that is the thing we're dealing with right now.
I know. And let me ask it this way too then, man. So let me pull up this article, this tweet right here from an individual named Lisa Bloom. Now, Lisa Bloom, yes, this is a very hard transition, so follow me here. I'm going to try and make these two things connect. But Lisa Bloom is an individual that has a very checkered past. I guess that the individuals, she's an attorney, the individuals that she's represented in the past, I believe, include Harvey Weinstein and some of the like. And it's difficult to get a proper gauge on what she actually means sometimes. So take this entire tweet with a grain of salt. As you're reading through this, though, I'm starting to think, man, like, I don't know, bro. Maybe we're just in a situation where, like we said before, there's just nothing to hide behind anymore. Maybe just being vulnerable is not only the healthiest thing that people can do right now, which I truly believe. That's one of the reasons why I said I think vulnerability breeds vulnerability. As you're transparent with somebody else, they stop putting up their own defense mechanisms and they start being transparent with you. That's how you genuinely get to know another human being, right? That's how you get to when you get past those hard facades. Right? When you get past the things that we put up, so the exterior that we want people to see is not necessarily an actual representation of ourselves. It's certainly not who we truly are.
Especially
so maybe
on
we
social media.
Especially not on social media, right? So maybe we drop that down a little bit and we start letting people into the real side of ourselves. It's an extremely healthy thing to do, because when you do that, then comes like accountability and growth and progression and all these things that we love. Here's Lisa Bloom, by the way. Maybe this is the state that we're in, bro. Maybe it's just people just being honest about their fears. Maybe it's their fears are being exploited a little bit. And I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just trying to do a little bit of the same thing here. And I'm asking some hard questions of myself, because Lisa Bloom comes out when it was this May 1st, a couple days back, and just you can read it for yourselves. Now, obviously, those that haven't followed the story, Tara Reid is the individual that has claimed that Joe Biden, presidential candidate,
she's the Biden destroyer. That's who she is. She sunk his battleship.
Yeah, that is true. So Tara Reid comes out and claims that Joe Biden, sexually assaulted her. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what she claimed to have sexually assaulted her.
Are you telling me that Biden was handsy with a woman?
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
I am blown away by this, Mr. Henry. I cannot believe such an accusation.
So Lisa Bloom comes out and says this tweet. I believe you, Tara Reid. You have people who remember you told them about this decades ago. We know he is handsy, like you just said, John, in those words. We know he is handsy. You're not asking for money. You obviously struggle mightily with this. I still, and so a hard period right there. You obviously struggled mightily with this. Hard period, basically, I believe you. I believe everything you said. You have some evidence that seems to corroborate it. It doesn't matter. I straight up believe you. And it should be a period and a strong however, but it's not. But it's just period. I still have to fight Trump, so I will still believe Joe, but I believe you and I'm sorry. It's like, I honestly don't know at that point, Shine, if it's just like the most refreshing version of hypocrisy that I've ever seen. It's been a very, very long time since I've seen someone so shockingly honest about their own hypocrisy. I can't tell whether it's grotesque or refreshing, or possibly both at the same time. Some small part of me is also, this is where I'm getting in a little bit strange territory here, buddy. And this is where I'm saying, like, vulnerability breeds vulnerability. You also work with me on this and help me with this in the chat section here. Some small part of me is also wondering if Republicans had the very same conversation with themselves before they voted for Trump. Yeah, I know. 2 seconds, though. Give me 2 seconds, right? I'm just walking on this line. Yet I also know that there's probably substantial differences between the two candidates' accusers here. Honestly, bro, I suppose all I'm really asking for is just a nuanced conversation on the matter with someone that truly knows all the facts behind both assertions. And if that hypothetical conversation were to happen, would it even matter, buddy? I'm fearful that both sides are more concerned about beating the other team than which horse they're backing. And see, this is where I'm getting myself into. It's like, dude, I don't know, bro. Like, I'll go back to one more time. Is her honesty about her own hypocrisy, is that a grotesque thing or is that a refreshing thing? I know it's shocking for sure, but which way do you fall on this?
I always appreciate honesty. I always appreciate, even in opponents, right? Because opponents aren't enemies, especially in politics. We should definitely remember that. In the American system, they're not enemies, they're opponents. So even in opponents, I prefer honesty because then I know what moves to jujitsu back at them, right? If they give me something false, then I'm that's not really something that they care about, then I don't know how to talk to them. I don't know how to engage them, right? And they may trick me or trap me. But when they're honest, you can engage where people are at. And it may be uncomfortable because people may not like where they're at, or you may not like where people are at. But it makes conversations that actually mean something by the end of them possible. Now, am I ever going to talk to this lawyer, this Bloom lady? No. Is kind of what she said. Can you laugh at it on its face? Yeah. But I can sympathize. Sort of. No, I mean, like, the allegations against him are a lot more clear-cut than a lot of the other allegations against Donald Trump or even Bill Clinton. Going back to Bill Clinton, the allegations against Joe Biden are worse because the corroborating evidence is more. It just is. That's the case. But it's not the first time that anyone has ever said, I don't care about this negative about a guy running for the presidency. I don't care about that negative. It's not outweighed by this positive or negative over here. Like, Joe Biden may have been handsy, but I believe Donald Trump is handsy with everybody, or Donald Trump's going to start a war or whatever. That happens. And here's the deal with choices. You got to make them. And I think that's what she was saying. I have to make a choice. And my only choice is Trump or Joe. But bigger than that nuanced conversation, I think it's a nice conversation to have. I think Tim Pool said the same thing you said, that he appreciated the honesty. But it's a big indicator that they don't know what the heck is going on for them and don't know what's going to happen. A month ago, they said hide him. And we've talked about that. They said that Joe Biden is doing better not being seen. The coronavirus is the best thing that could have happened to Joe Biden. They were saying that. But this Tara Reade thing has brought him out of hiding and made him go on television. I mean, he had to go on television with, what's his name? Meet the Press. I forget his name, but he went on Meet the Press.
Joe Biden?
Yeah, Joe Biden had to go on
Mika
Brzezinski. I'm sorry, you're right. He went on Morning Joe.
Yeah.
But I think he also went on Meet the Press the day before. Yeah. Morning Joe was on Monday. But it's just been ugly.
Yeah.
And the ugliness showing his ugly side, which is not the Tara Reade thing. The ugly side is that he can't talk. It's that he can't think. And then his opponents get to talk for him. That's the deal. That's really his main exposure point. But it's making people like her have to say these things. And it'll only continue, bro. We're like 6 months out? Imagine what
I know.
Imagine the things people are going to be saying in July and August.
Yeah.
And I still go back to one more thing. I still go back to my prediction from 2017. Whoever faces Donald Trump will be beat worse than Dukakis. And if you don't know about that, look it up. I think he won 2 states, Dukakis. Maybe 3 states.
And see, again, man, that's where I repeat from what I said on Friday's program is I just don't know if that's the healthiest thing for the Republican Party. They're stuck so much in the personality thing that people are following Donald Trump. They're not following conservative ideology anymore. No. They're political philosophy or policy or whatever you're even talking about. It's just whatever comes out of that dude's mouth is basically what they're following. And I know, honestly, I may be rubbing some of the real news audience the wrong way this morning, but that is genuine now at this point. And it's just as problematic on the other side. I just don't know where consistency lies anymore. Actually, in I don't know if this is coming from YouTube or Twitch or where it's coming from, but it's pretty awesome. You can actually see the scroll on the screen. Someone somewhere, ZW0LF92 said,
I think it's Twitch.
The way that they saying that the way that the hashtag Me Too movement is cannibalizing Tara Reade is like cutting off your nose to spite your face. Yeah, exactly, dude. I mean, that's exactly what's going on, right? Daniel Snowden said it's obviously just about the team. It's only always been about the team. That's how they control people. Well, but see, that's true. But then it becomes very odd. And this is something that I know Daniel Snowden, when I say this, you can be like, oh, really? Because this is what I've always said. If it's always been just about the team, Sean, it's starting to look like for a lot of people that there is no differences in the teams at all. It's honestly starting to look like it's the exact same team. They're just wearing a reversible jersey, and it's like the Lakers, bro. Just because one's gold and one's purple doesn't mean that they're on different teams. It's the same team color. They're just wearing the reversible jersey as each other. If this is the result that we end up having, you get what I'm saying, buddy? And that's where I'm finding my frustration a little bit. I don't know. I really don't know if I should be knocking Lisa Bloom because I'm disgusted with what she said, or I should honestly be supporting this type of honesty, because in that honesty, we can finally move past some of this hypocrisy that frustrates me so much. To the core, it frustrates me a lot of times, man. And I don't know where I stand with that. I just know that, let me read a comment from Eric said a second ago as well. Where did this go? Here he goes, saying we can have both. Going back to the liberty freedom conversation that started this entire thing, saying we can have both. But to me, it's like this. We want liberty, freedom to choose for ourselves without the interference from government. That is a long conversation, but it's the gist of the main plot. And we can also have security, but it doesn't mean, but it doesn't have to be from the government regulations or overreach. That never works out. Yes, we can take responsibility for ourselves and our family, and for those who know, for the ones who we need to protect. We can take that role well without the commuting the same actions as those from law enforcement and military. Yeah, basically what he's saying is like, you can have both. You can live this dream. You can do the freedom thing, the civil liberties thing, and the safety and protection thing all at the same time. If enough people take that aspect of self-responsibility to do the right thing. I don't know if altruism is that inherently ingrained within American society. And then here's the odd thing, bro, is like this whole scenario with politics right now, of everything that I've just laid out for the last 30 minutes of this program that Sean and I have just been talking about, it makes for a very, very strange bedfellows. You get what I'm saying? I find myself falling on the same page as Alexander Cortez here far more often than I would like to. And I don't know what I should do with that.
Than I would like you to as well.
That's true. But look at this headline, dude. Tell me I'm wrong. This is coming from April 15th, by the way. So I don't know how Alexander Cortez was, by the way, if Google's letting everyone now know that it is Mr. Henry building a computer. Yeah, apparently, because it's just throwing all my Newegg stuff up here for everyone to see, whatever. Anyways, so I don't know how much I should be frustrated with following the same page as Alexander Cortez, but she's correct here.
Not on this.
She's definitely correct here. And that's what I'm saying is like, am I playing into the cult of personality because it's AOC that's saying it? Should I be frustrated just because it's AOC? And I'm like, no, that is a logical fallacy on its face. It is a logical fallacy on its face. She's correct. So she can be correct here and wrong the other 95% of the time. I'm totally fine with that. Am I? Am I off there?
Dude, here's the deal. And this is why I said that the real story is that everything's falling apart for the Democratic establishment because they're being hit from all sides. The progressives are coming after them. Obviously, the conservatives are pointing and laughing. And I would even say some moderate Democrats have a bad taste in their mouth, and they're just not talking about it as much. But the problem is it's not Donald Trump saying this. That's the problem for the Democratic establishment. It is AOC. It's people in Hollywood. It's that guy who's on YouTube who does a good job for the Democrats. It's a Bernie supporter. Chiginski, something ski. I can't remember his name, but like,
I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about. Right.
I can't remember his name, but like, there's several influencers on the progressive side that have nothing good to say about the situation at all, and calling out the hypocrisy, and right to do so, and are basically saying if you'd allowed Bernie to be the nominee, you wouldn't have this issue. I can't believe what you're doing to the party, and this is hypocritical. And this is the beginning of what could be a very healthy thing for the Democratic Party. Mr. Henry, we were saying a long time ago, there was work that needed to be done in the Democratic Party and it specifically had to do with ignoring reality. Generally, in a general space. And I could explain that, but it'd take too much time. But I think most of you, if you follow politics, know what I'm talking about. They just willfully ignore reality, or have done so several times over the past few years. And this could be the beginning of a sizable portion of the Democratic Party saying that is not real. Which it may be an issue that I wish they'd done that with some other issue. But at least they're doing it with a issue. And it took them screwing over a third of their party for this to happen. And I feel like it could be healthy. Just people saying the emperor has no clothes. That's the way of saying it. Is people in that party, just like they did in the Republican Party in 2010, 2011, 12. Was it a perfect revolution? No. But it was a revolution that the Republican Party had to go through, or a reformation, where things are added, things are subtracted, emphasis is put on different things, priorities are shifted. That needs to happen in the Democratic Party. And I hope that this is the beginning of that for them, so that they can be someone as a group, as a party, that can have nuanced conversation, because you can't do that if no one is willing to say the emperor has no clothes. And golly, if anyone is stark naked, it's Joe Biden. The guy has no clothes. He has no scepter. He has no crown. He has nothing. He has nothing. I mean, the poor guy. I mean, he's got experience, but I think honestly, it's, and I hope more people say stuff like this, it doesn't seem to be nice. Like, it's not a good thing they're doing to Joe Biden by making him run.
Sure. Yeah, I hear you there,
I
dude.
mean, it's almost elder abuse. I mean, it's pretty bad, and I think it's sad. But this is, hopefully something like this could be to turn out positive from it. Is people in the Democratic Party being willing to say that's not true to their leadership.
Well, dude, this thing you've been harping on the last couple of days also, where, I don't want to steal the thunder here, but I found this article yesterday. I was actually trying to look it up while you were talking there, man, and I just couldn't find it for the life of me where I put this thing. But the article was essentially saying that there's probably, it was Ben Shapiro tweeted it. All right, whatever. It was a New York Times article. And the New York Times article was making the argument that there's probably a reason why Democrat-controlled states are not exactly like, biting, chomping at the bit to solve their financial woes right now, right? Or to reopen the economy either, possibly, necessarily. And part of the reason that the New York Times article was making, I'll find this here so I can actually reference it instead of just taking my opinion for it, but the New York Times article was essentially saying there's reasons why these Democrat states are not exactly trying to reopen the economy that may, strongly stress may, have nothing to do with the coronavirus. It may have something to do with, well, we can just get the rest of our stuff bailed out by the federal government. It may have to do with the fact that, like, we are getting massive handouts, massive subsidies right now. The fact that private industry is coalescing together to take care of problems that we have been desperately trying to take care of for decades, bro. This article would describe that in California, they now have, like, housing for the homeless. They figured out how to do, like, criminal justice reform seemingly overnight. That they have inner city kids now that have laptops for remote viewing of education and stuff. Like, all these major projects they've tried to figure out how to handle over the past couple of decades, and they just have terrible finances behind it, terrible way that they control their finances. They just couldn't figure it out. And now, because of this coronavirus situation, and again, this is not my opinion, so trust me, I wish I could show the article. Go find the New York Times. I know for sure it's New York Times. That's the argument that they were making, and same thing that Shine's been saying for the last 2 or 3 days here is, like, there may be reasons that are unrelated to coronavirus, and maybe we should look at that. I'll give you a chance to respond here, Shine, because I got a Republican retort here in just a second, though. But go ahead, buddy.
I mean, okay, I have said it on the show, so I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I think there's a reason why these states who don't want to open up don't want to open up. And they don't want to open up because they want this to go on till June. Why do you think June has been the magic deal? Even as things seem to be getting better in even the worst places like New York. New York is flattening. But Virginia is saying June, Illinois is saying June, New York, California, all saying June. I don't know why that's the deal, but they need it to be several months of shutdown. Why is that? I don't think they're ready to open up state services or start paying payroll at full deal because of the money they've spent during coronavirus. I think they actually don't have the ability to open the state up with current funds. I think that's part of it. And they need this bailout in order to run their state the way they were running it before. They could run their state, they just couldn't run it the way they were before. Like, they might have to pay people who chop down trees $75,000 instead of $120,000, in Illinois. But I think these states are holding out for this bailout. And they are looking for a circumstantial reason that makes arguing the point they shouldn't have it an amoral argument. Like, you're a bad person for saying they shouldn't have the bailout. If everybody opens up in the next couple weeks, like before they pass this next bill, the CARES Act 2.0, which we probably need to spend a lot of time on over the next couple days, Mr. Henry. I think both of us got a brief in an email this morning where we can talk about it
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
But I think there's been enough pushback where this CARES Act may take a while to pass. Hopefully. We need to keep on that, though. We need to keep sending messages to our local representatives, federal representatives about this state bailout. Not just because state bailouts are bad, but we need to let the government know that there's a bias against, I don't know, $500 billion checks being sent out or $1 trillion checks being sent out. And if they're going to send it out, they better spend it on good stuff. But yes, I think there's a connection between the staying closed and these state bailouts. And I think there will be more evidence over time. And the more we push back on the opening and the more we push back on not bailing out state governments, the more we will find out. So I just, and I think in the description, you can find the state bailout petition. If you want to sign that, it should be in the first few lines. But you just go up to the description, you can click on that. And also, I think we can probably go ahead and announce this now to some of our hardcore fans who are still on the stream. We will be doing a stream with a lot of Real News contributors and friends and volunteers and activists talking about the state bailout issue. We're going to do a petition drive where we try to maximize your voice, try to maximize this issue, and stop these state bailouts. But we'll be doing, I think that's going to be tomorrow night. At what time, Mr. Henry? 7 p.m. Eastern?
Yeah, Eastern, yeah.
7 p.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. We'll be doing a kind of like a telethon.
8 p.m., yeah, right.
8 p.m., sorry.
6 p.m. Central, sorry.
6 p.m. I always do that. I always do it go the other way. 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be a great time. We'll talk more about it later. But anyway, that's
yeah, man.
That state bailout issue, it's hot. It's hot right now.
Well, look, and that's honestly, dude, that's exactly what I wanted to go into. All right. So while we have the claim that from the New York Times that the Democrats are possibly doing something here where, look, we've been talking about the same situation since 2011, even well prior to that, of unfunded pensions is the least of some of these states' concerns. But it's not the least of some of these states' concerns. It's a large part of what makes up some of these unfunded liabilities that are going forward. So while we're talking about poorly run, say, Democrat states, man, I'm obviously getting to the point of stressing really that, like, dude, Republicans are not that much better. Obviously, when it comes to things like cronyism and corporate welfare and a few other things in particular. Now, personally, I believe that we should be helping those that are hurting, not bailing out politicians for irresponsible decisions they made prior to this crisis. But as we've seen before, lawmakers use this crisis for jockeying for handouts to pay the past mistakes in the name of helping those in the hardest hit. And a little bit of what I'm talking about too, man, is like this some of these massive bills that you're about to hear about. Check out this headline right here, right? Some of these massive bills that you're about to hear about are ripe for exploitation. They are ripe for cronyism and corporate welfare. They are ripe for the government picking winners and losers. And this is a very clear Republican thing sometimes. It's just no different to me anymore. And again, this is a pitch for Americans for Prosperity, a little bit of the company we work for. What Sean and I do right now has nothing to do with that company, that organization. I appreciate the organization's stance in a time like this because we are not affiliated with either party. Our motto, our mission statement is the Frederick Douglass quote of work with anyone to do right and no one to do wrong. We will unite with anyone to push forward a positive message and unite with no one to push forward a negative message. And we don't care if it's Democrat or Republican. Dude, I'm not lying with y'all. I work with NAACP and the ACLU almost on a daily basis up here. And for a lot of our Republican buddies, that type of rhetoric is like, oh my gosh, what are y'all working on? Were you working voting rights restoration, criminal justice reform? A lot of stuff, bro, that is the right thing to do, regardless of party affiliation. Now, you read a headline like this, back to some economic stuff, right? You read a headline like this, Donald Trump and the Fed could be about to destroy the U.S. banking system. And a lot of people are thinking like, cool, fantastic, I love it. At least some people might be thinking like, yes, Donald Trump destroyed. And look, if it's talking about destroying the central bank system, we can walk down that conspiracy theory road if you want to a little bit. I got no problem with that. But we do need to recognize that it's something that's like, I don't know if the motivation for what Donald Trump is trying to do by introducing negative interest rates, which I'll talk about here in just a second, by introducing negative interest rates is necessarily him with the intention to try and destroy a central banking system. Now that argument, that conversation, Sean, goes all the way back to our founding. Like, I mean, literal founding father stuff, Federalist, anti-Federalist paper stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
But this story in particular, they're talking about the coronavirus lockdown is obviously put in place, this slow spread in a ravaged U.S. economy. So the idea, because we're about to propose $6 trillion worth of additional spending, the idea is the economic reality of the post-coronavirus world sinks in. President Trump and the Fed are edging closer to negative interest rates. Something legendary investor Warren Buffett said could have extreme consequences. Now, I don't know enough about economics to understand if this is the right way to go or not. I just know that negative interest rates means that borrowers are paid to take out loans by the lender. They've adopted a number of central banks around the world. A number of central banks around the world are doing this. The European central
Europe
banks,
did it before
Japanese
we
central
did.
banks, or what I believe Swedish central banks. Yeah, exactly.
Europe did it before we
Exactly.
did. That's why we did it. That was the excuse was, well, Europe's doing it and we don't want to fall behind, kind of.
Yeah. That's a little bit of what Donald Trump is saying is like other banks are doing this. So to keep up and to not necessarily play fair, but to at least play the same game that they are, we also need to take on some kind of like negative interest rates. And I found this one clip here, buddy. of a solution that I would hope we could try before we try the negative interest rate things. Because again, a negative interest rate has some very strange implications behind it. Again, we're in a debt-based society here. We're in a debt-based thing where consumers need to go get more lending power than they actually would otherwise based upon their current income. The more lending power they have, your potential debt is also considered someone else's income, right? So if you get acquired spending power by taking on a loan from somebody else, you can then spend more than you actually bring in, which increases somebody else's income. I get that in a very basic economic sense. I get that. But negative interest rates to me is a very strange thing to consider. Watch this like minute and a half video here real quick, y'all. And just tell me if you can pick up on the one thing that I would like to consider before all of this. Hint, it's at the very end of the video. Watch this. He's probably going to skip, but just the audio.
2019 was the year of the cut. The main central banks cut interest rates more often than in any other year during the decade. And in recent years, some central banks have even strayed into negative territory. But what's the point of negative interest rates? The whole idea is to prod commercial banks into lending money to businesses and consumers in order to get money flowing in the economy. This has been essential since the financial crisis. Central banks hold money for commercial banks. So, if central banks cut their interest rate below zero, they can charge commercial banks interest on the money they're holding. To protect their profits, the commercial banks are then encouraged to cut their own interest rates. And that means it costs less to borrow and more to save. So there should, in theory, be more spending in the economy, which pushes up inflation.
Sure, in theory, I get it.
The Central Bank of Denmark was the first to venture below zero in 2012, followed 2 years later by several of Europe's central banks.
Hey, Grant.
After that,
Yeah,
the
pause
Bank
that real
of
quick. Do me a favor and turn the volume down to like 80% if you have it at full. Because a lot of the clipping is because it's too loud. So maybe half volume or whatever. There we go.
Yeah, try this. Let me know.
So, why aren't all the central banks doing it? So why should we be worried that the global economy has so many central banks operating with negative and zero interest rates? Part of the problem is that when you cut rates so much, there's no more room for manoeuvre to accommodate further fluctuations. The Bank for International Settlements published a report last year which said, "There's something vaguely troubling when the unthinkable becomes routine." So, what's next for central banks? After 5 years of negative interest rates, Sweden's Riksbank has said it's time to return to zero, even though economic growth slowed and inflation hasn't met its target. Could this signal the end of this unconventional policy? Until governments are prepared to boost the economy by coughing up with fiscal policies, it looks like central banks will have to use every tool in their belt.
Did you all catch the one thing that I would like to focus on there? And I know it was a long clip. It was a 2 minute, 14-second clip, but I really did think it was important to play almost the entirety of that. One, to get an understanding as to what America is thinking about trying here as we enter this weird economic landscape going forward. The next thing they're about to try is negative interest rates where you're literally being paid to take money over. Secondly, though, which the end of this thing is, until world governments think about coughing up fiscal policies, what I heard that say is basically until world governments think about like reducing in size, stop spending so much,
Maybe we don't need every single thing done by government. I don't know, man. Maybe let the free market principles work that stuff out. Maybe we really do get back to basics. But this is the reason why I'm bookending the entire show like this right now. I started with this appeal to the audience of, can you please help us get back to the original intention of why we did this morning program, why Sean and I put this together, why we started it during this time period, to create a small little gathered community of people that are extremely intelligent, that do their research, that hold us accountable, that know what's going on. That was the purpose behind this. And then bookending the other end of that with everything we've been through the show today. Maybe it is just as simple as getting back to original principles. Maybe it is just as simple as getting back to like, dude, can we just not, like, maybe we just reduce in size a little? Maybe we don't spend so insanely much. Maybe a lot of the problems that we could be solved with, like, I don't know, dude. Like, maybe the first time ever seriously considering some Ron Paul principles of, like, just straight up cutting departments. I don't know. I'm speaking a little bit outrageous here, Sean. I get that. When you're talking about, like, just straight Mr. Henry, you're talking about just, like, getting rid of the Department of Education? Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, maybe. I don't know, dude. Look, the Department of Education, my parents' generation didn't have a Department of Education. I think that generation did okay. They did just fine. They did arguably way better than possibly my generation is doing. So without a massive federal oversight of this bloated bureaucratic nonsense, they seem to be doing A-okay, buddy. Like, they got it figured out. They totally got it figured out. So why do we need that? Where did that department necessity come from? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know either. Even though, you know, you get rid of the Department of Education, you may save $70 billion a year, you know, or less.
Right. Right.
Which is a drop in the bucket. But here's my prediction, Mr. Henry. I think we have zero interest rates. I don't think they're situational because of coronavirus or the economy or anything else. I think it's because you have most of the world's wealthy people about to enter into retirement. And banks don't want to pay for savings rates worldwide for most of the nation's wealthy people, which I think we've talked about this before. In most developed nations in the world, demographics are upside down, and most of the people are old. Like in Germany, Japan, even in China, they have a problem with this. We kind of have a problem with this. At least we have millennials. We had a baby boom. But I think all these people worldwide in most of the major, let's call it the G8 or the G12, most of these major economies have people, the majority of their population is entering into retirement, Grant. They're living off savings. And I think banks just don't want to pay out. Because when you have negative interest rates on borrowing, you also have, negative interest rates on savings, right? That means you don't make any money when your money's in the bank. You even lose money when money's in the bank. So I think some of this is extraction of wealth from the world's wealthy middle class, right? I think that's part of it. And then because of that, my prediction is that we won't see anything get better with savings until after that demographic has passed, right? I also think that the reason you have the largest government in the United States and worldwide, some of these governments are the largest they've ever been, is because they're servicing this older population, right? All these people who've made all the money. They've made all the money and they want services. I mean, they're the ones who created wealth. You know, this boomer generation, post-World War II generation, worldwide has created the wealth that we've seen, you know, in the past century. And that's probably why these governments are so big. And I don't think there'll be any shrinking them in a real way, Mr. Henry, until you and I are in our 60s and 70s. Probably.
Yeah.
And I know that's bleak and whatever, but I think that's some real analysis there. When you look at demographics,
I hear you.
You look at worldwide trends, you look at the worldwide economies, that seems to be, to me, the untold story of why interest rates are negative. I think it's banks worldwide don't want to pay out because they would have in their entire existence, especially in the modern era, they would have never had to pay out so much for savers as they will over the next 25 years. Over the next 25 years, if we had even 1 to 2 to 3% interest rates, trillions of dollars would go out of banks. So I think that's the deal, and I don't think it gets a lot better until those people are dead, and I hate saying that.
Well, Aaron said in Facebook a second ago, 95% of bureaucrats are non-essential. Eric said just a second ago as well. Aaron said that first one. Eric said this second one here, that we were ranked at the top of education worldwide until the Department of Education got involved. Now education is a government monopoly. Even private institutions have to get government permission to do anything. now we're behind almost every advanced country in the world. It's sad, actually. And Sean, let me be completely honest here again. It's the theme of the show today. Why not? I realize basically what I'm calling for when I'm talking about drastically reducing size of government during a time period like this. Basically, what I'm calling for is a lot of government employees to lose their jobs, and that is my assessment. I don't know if there's another way to do it. I frankly don't know if there's another way to pitch it. I just need to be as honest as possible.
They
with
could
the
just
real news audience
renegotiate contracts and pay them less.
That's valid. That's very valid. They could just do that.
I don't have that Illinois article pulled up, but they found like 100,000 jobs in the city, that were state employee jobs in the state of Illinois where people made over $100,000 a year.
Well, and
100,000
you're right there.
People.
I know.
But
I guess what I'm saying, dude, is just like in private industry, the ability or the capacity to save those jobs, to save a failing business, people just don't like the feeling of that. They don't like the feeling of a terribly run corporation getting a bailout. It's just for all the right reasons, it's wrong, right? You know what I'm saying? But for some reason, when you replace private corporation with a governmental entity, now all of a sudden there's a totally different thing there. I don't understand. Maybe it's this idea of like a collective social contract that we've all agreed that those jobs should be there. But like, did we though? In some sense, did we really? I think it's what you're saying, Shine. Like, did all of everyone in the state come together in California and say like, yeah, we should be paying like all of these bureaucratic officials 6 figures, like high 6 figures, some of them? I don't know, bro. Well, I don't know. I'm just saying.
It's more like there's nuance there. It's like we want the government to chop down trees, but we don't want to pay. We want the government to chop down trees. We just don't want them to pay $1 million to chop down a tree.
Right.
I mean, that's the deal, right? We want them to build a building, but we don't want them to pay the electrician $100 an hour. We want them to pay a reasonable, maybe even slightly above market rate, because we want it to be really safe and whatever, because our people who are running our state live there or work there. But we don't want them to overcharge. Kind of like we want to have a military. We want America to be safe. But we don't want them to start wars with people who didn't do anything to us, and we don't want them to make $1 million hammers and $1 million toilets. There's nuance there.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need a false choice, Grant. That's what we don't need. We don't need a false choice, and we don't need to let people frame it as a false choice. Because if we don't have the money to pay for these things, then we don't. And it's not
pure and simple.
And with state governments, it's different than businesses, because businesses have to figure out a way to maximize profits and minimize losses. Governments don't have to do that. It's far more wasteful to promote a bad government idea than to promote a bad business idea. All day long, I don't care what the example is. I don't care if you're talking about a Lockheed Martin military contract. That's not as wasteful as dumping money into a state that is not doing things that produce value, because the costs are higher and they're infinite. They go on forever because a government program never ends. At least a Lockheed Martin contract will end eventually, you know? And that's kind of my point on that stuff, is comparing it to private business to state governments. It's just a lot different because it goes on forever.
Well, and you know, man, I guess that part of what I'm trying to express today, and it sometimes I just, you know, Sean and I both just kind of like work through stuff while we're doing this program live. And again, that is the purpose of what we're doing, is to build a community, to read the comments, to redirect our thinking. And I guess, man, I'll end the show with this today, dude, is part of where I'm at is like, maybe it's just time to try something different. Maybe it's just time to try something new. If everyone is going to accept some aspect of a new normal anyways, maybe we should actually lean more on the new, as opposed to making whatever new normal oxymoron is acceptable term. Maybe we try something genuinely new. And here's what I mean, man, is if we can go through this analysis this morning of people on the left sort of expressing their hypocrisy about the way that Joe Biden should be treated, or overlooking some of his sexual assault claims. And maybe if we can make a similar assessment, because we don't have nuanced conversations anymore, that's not even a thing. If we can make a similar conversation about the way that Donald Trump was elected. Okay, so maybe I can say that, okay, that's a little bit of an indication that there may not be too much difference between the parties. All right, let's take it one step further. Let's look at economics, all right? So if I can say that a lot of these failing states are failing because they're just terrible fiscal policy, that they just promise stuff, like a Vermin Supreme would promise, you know, free ponies to everybody. They just promise these unfunded pensions to everybody and then have no real way of paying for them later on. That's a Democrat problem. But in the same sense, man, we have a Republican problem, because they're choosing a bunch of winner losers of corporations that the mom and pop shops don't get the same type of handouts. that is literally government sticking their hand in the free market and manipulating that sauce. So I have just as much a problem on that side as well. So now there's 2 or 3 different variables there that I'm considering. Like, maybe it's not that much different. And if it's not that much different, dude, maybe we do use this time to genuinely try something different, to genuinely try something new. And maybe that new thing is just like a little bit less of all of it, a little bit less of both sides, a little bit more of like personal accountability, a little bit more altruism, a little bit more of looking out for your fellow man, a little bit more localized solutions, a little bit more of you solving your problem for your neighbor, with your churches, with your community groups, with your nonprofit organizations, whatever's right for your community, and let it grow out organically like a grassroots movement truly should, man. Maybe that's all I'm really saying. It's just a little bit less at the top of the same stuff and a little bit something new where like you figure it out on your own. I'll end it there with the show today, Sean. I got some real work to put in right now. Stay tuned, though, for some awesome stuff we got coming up tomorrow. Great events. Sign the pledge at the top of this show notes here as well. If you do not want to see the federal government bail out the states, if you do not